Hi, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. So, I want to welcome you out today. This is the Power Quarter Hour, and I am Chisa Pennix-Brown. I am the Chief Curator of Give It to the People, which is a mental wealth company that is focused on getting your mind right and your money right. And the Power Quarter Hour is basically a 15-minute high energy dose of valuable insights, the latest business trends, must have apps, and then entrepreneurial wisdom that I am definitely going to bestow upon you. So, this is a quick boost of knowledge and inspiration to get your day going. And our goal is to make sure that we do this every Thursday at 1 p.m. to 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This helps people to get a little bit more business acumen, but also to understand the mental wealth side of things so that this way they can be better business owners, better entrepreneurs, and they can definitely be better equipped in order to deal with all of the things that life throws at us. Because as entrepreneurs, sometimes you need that little accountability partner. Sometimes you need just a quick tip, and it's like, okay, I need to do better. So this week, our episode is about the art of effective communication. And I feel like that is so important because, one of the biggest things that we as humans get wrong is how to talk to people, what to say to people, and how we want to be engaged. Okay. Let's just leave it like that. So, whether we're talking about text messaging or we're talking about email or we're talking about being on the phone or physically being in people's presence or even being on a virtual call, right? Our world has changed. It has definitely transformed. And I want you to understand there is going to be an accompanying blog post that is going to go with this video that's going to go in a little bit more detail. But in 15 minutes, I wanted to be able to give you some of my top points that I think that are really important when we talk about effective communication, and specifically when we talk about dealing with business owners and entrepreneurs. And so my first tip is for you to know the audience. And when I say know the audience, what do I mean? Sometimes people have information that they do want to disseminate, but they're not like reading the room. They're not seeing the temperature of what's going on in the atmosphere as it is, right? And so a lot of times when you don't know the audience, you do not take the time to tailor the message. And I think that if you tailor your message to kind of resonate with the people that you're talking with, it can make it a lot easier when it's communication. So I'm one of those people who I like to call myself, if I was going to kind of term what I do as far as speaking, I speak in a lot more of a colloquial way because I know who my audience is and I want them to be comfortable. Now, if I feel like I need to change the way that I'm speaking, or since I like to give storytelling, one of the things that I feel like I do well, as an example, because I think that people need real life examples in order to understand how things are in business, specifically when I'm talking to people about things that are online. Oftentimes people get very confused and they're looking at the jargon as opposed to looking at how it would work in real life. And the similarities are, they're definitely parallel. So a lot of times I think that you have to know the audience and speak at a tone that they can understand. And that will definitely help people when you give them some plain points, some things that they can grasp. And then now they have it, right? And so that's the thing. The next tip would be clear messaging. Sometimes people think that they're being clear and they're all over the place. And so when I talk about clear messaging, being concise, I think that as a person who likes to talk a lot and a person who likes to write a lot, it can be hard to break that down into small bites and small increments. But what I like to do if I'm communicating effectively is say what I need to say first, then let a repetition come through for it so that this way I can repeat it, right? And then people understand it, and then show people how to do things. And that works really well when you're talking about effective communication because sometimes people need things repeated to them. They might not have caught it the first time. You might need to give them an example. And so when you're talking about clear communication, trying to avoid that jargon, I think that's an important thing because that language barrier, sometimes people just don't understand those things. So when you're clear and you're concise, you can be more engaging because the people understand exactly what you mean. Now, another thing I like to do personally is I like to do things in bullet points. And if you notice as humans, we do things in threes, right? So if you look at like your social security number, if you look at the phone number, those things are already broken out into threes. People remember things very easily into threes, but sometimes once you go past that, it can be a little bit daunting for them. So make your message clear and concise and keep it very to the point so that this way it makes it a lot easier for people to grasp what you're giving them. And then this way they can give you feedback on that. Okay. Now, my next tip is be authentic. And I know you probably hear that word so much, right? Especially now in this whole, AI world and this whole social media world where people are using filters for everything, right? This is not a filter. This is just regular old me, okay? And the thing that I think that people like about when they come to classes or when they come to speaking engagements or when we curate conferences for them is that I'm going to be authentically me at every opportunity that I get. I don't really know how to try to fake it to be somebody else. And so if you are going to have effective communication, then what you should do is be you in every room that you're in, virtually, in real life. You know what I mean? If you're in a hybrid situation, you should still be you. And so that means allowing your personality to shine, not just what you think people might want, but really who you are. And sometimes we're a little quirky. Sometimes we're a little geek box. That's what I like to say. And that's just because I'm a little nerdy sometimes. But I'm always going to make sure that the personality is there. And I think that that can make a huge difference in the reception that you get from people. And then the feedback that you get, again, and you notice I'm saying feedback again with the repetition part, right? Because if you are effectively communicating, people will like that. And people will ask you to come back and speak again. People will ask you to simplify things for them. They will ask you to explain things because they know that your way of thinking is something that's completely logical and they can understand what you're talking about, right? Now, this next one, this is one that is super hard for a lot of people. And I can say in business situations, I am definitely 100% on board with this next tip I'm going to give you. But in personal situations, specifically with my husband, who's also my business partner, this one can be the most difficult. Okay. You ready for it? Active listening. Listen, active listening can be so difficult. And I'm going to tell you why. You want to listen to what the person is saying. You want to be enthralled and engaged. But oftentimes, we're not actively listening. We're listening so that we can respond. And when you do that, sometimes you miss the point of what the person was trying to get across. Or sometimes you're thinking a person said something that they didn't say because in your mind, that's what you wanted to hear. So part of active listening is actually paying attention. Oh, wow. I know that's like such a novel thing, but it's actually paying attention to what people are saying during conversations. And what happens now is let me show you, we have cell phones, right? And these cell phones can distract us. We have the television, we have anything else that's in our environment, and it can cause us to not actively listen to people. You might hear words, but if you can't actually tell the person what they just said, summarize it, you're not really actively listening. And so part of active listening is really trusting that, or the other person is trusting that you're going to listen to them enough to be able to give them a response that makes sense for what they're actually saying. And so I think that that's a really important part because people want to be heard. And it's also a sign of respect when you can, go back and tell people what they said. Now, I'm going to throw this in there. This is like a little chocolate. So if you've been to any of my webinars or classes, I like to throw these things in called the little chocolates. They're kind of like the warm and fuzzies that make you feel all good inside your stomach, good extra information. And so this is an extra tip that goes with active listening and also is a part of the art of effective communication. You ready for it? I think you're ready. Now, this part right here, we want you to actively listen, but we also want you to be able to give us that feedback. Now, you see, this is the third time I said feedback, because if we're actively listening, then what we can do is the feedback that we give people is clarity. And I think a lot of times when you are communicating, it literally might not be clear to somebody what you're saying. Or a person may have a preconceived notion about what it is that they thought you were saying, and they need that clarity. So if you are actively listening, then you can ask for clarity because of the fact that you will know that you did or didn't understand something. And it's not that the person wasn't giving you the information, they were giving you the information, but it comes in the form of, Okay, well, let me make sure I understand this. Well, let me make sure that what you're saying is XYZ. Or one of my favorite thing is, let me make sure we're saying the same thing. Let me make sure we're on the same page. And either one of those things is definitely a part of active listening, because I couldn't then ask for clarity if I wasn't listening actively in the first place. Okay. Now, our last thing that I'm going to go over, and I just want you to understand that, like I said, there will be an accompanying blog post that goes with this. And I'm going to add in a couple more little pieces that we're not going to do on this video just for the sake of time. But I think that if, as business owners, we are going to effectively communicate, at the end of whatever it is that we say, there needs to be some type of call to action. And a lot of times people forget this. So if you are speaking in front of a crowd, I would love for you to get in touch with me afterwards. This is how you can contact me. Find me at such and such. You can speak with me at boom. So let's say if you're at a live event and you have a table or a booth. Hey, I would love for you to come back to my booth and let's continue this conversation. Boom. Or you could say something like, look, we have an email list that I would love for you to sign up on, and we can continue this conversation in the form of email, and we can continue to send you additional pieces of information, right? You can also say things like, well, listen, I would love to get your information. And so if you could come over here, or if we could talk afterwards, let's exchange business cards, right? Or you can say something like I like to do, which is, hey, let's just get your phone out right now and let's connect on LinkedIn, because those things definitely work. Now, another thing that I like to do as a call to action, and I'm going to pull it up really quickly, is I have an app that we use for our business, and it's Link. Okay. So, I mean, I know you can see it on the screen, but this app right here, if a person is saying that they want to get in contact with me, I'm not going to carry around business cards, but I'm going to have my phone, and I'm also going to have my card that has the link, which is a QR code that allows people to connect with me immediately. And so people will be like, oh, I would love to get your information. Well, I would love to get yours too. And they try to pull out their business card, and I'm just like, well, listen, let's connect on here, and then I can follow you immediately. And so I think that when we look at the way that calls to action are done nowadays, especially in relation to being able to effectively communicate, it probably is a little bit more of an immediacy that we can put into what we're doing in order to allow people to decide, listen, yes, I really do want to connect with you. I really would like to get to know you. I really would like to know more about your business. And so for me, these are some of the basic tips that I think anybody can use, specifically entrepreneurs, though, because once you know your audience, you can definitely talk to them in a way that they want to be spoken to, right? When you have clear messaging, it definitely helps people to understand you a whole lot better. When you're authentically yourself, what happens is they know you, your personality, and they want more of it. They can't even live another day without that personality, right? Or they know if they don't like it, and then they're like, let's run. But we hope that's not what we're doing here. We want them to still be a part of it, right? And then to me, out of this, the active listening is like super important, because a lot of times one thing that I like to do whenever, we're communicating is take notes. And so two things that you can do: take notes where you can physically write things down so you can remember and it can trigger a thought in your mind. And then also I like to use an app called otter.ai. So this is our last little chocolate for the day: OTTER.ai. If I know that I'm going to have a really enthralling conversation, especially if it's with a client, I'm not going to remember everything that we said, that you said, that I said verbatim. So this can help me to go back and look at the conversation if I want to look at a transcript, but also to listen to it, because a lot of times when you listen to things again, you get that feeling of, oh, I remember feeling such and such when this happened. And that feeling can kind of throw off your active listening portion. So I'm just giving you some extra little tips to go with active listening. And then the final thing, again, that call to action. Make sure that there is a call to action. If that's sending somebody to your website, if that's asking them to subscribe to something, if that's asking them to set a meeting and you have a link to where they can book your time, if that's saying, well, listen, I'm going to invite you to this event, and you already have the link where you could go ahead and send it. If that's exchanging information immediately, then those are the things that you really need to do in order to have better communication. And when I'm telling you, you do this, this is going to make a world of difference. But it's one more little tip. I'm going to throw this in there, and this is going to be in that blog post: following up. Ooh, okay. I know you thought I was going to just ease up, but following up is definitely one of the best things. And so, if you add that into this mix, then your effective communication will be that much better. Now, I hope you've enjoyed today with our Power Quarter Hour. And then I hope you'll join me next week. We will be on 1 to 1:15 on Thursday next week. And I look forward to giving you some more information, another lively little dose of the Power Quarter Hour. Make sure that you always show up and show out and continue to give it to the people. Bye, guys.